So, very warm good evening to all of you, honorable speakers, members of AWS, team of Galgotia faculty members, and attendees. I would like to extend the warm welcome to the webinar, your first hours on AWS, that is powered by AWS Educate Campus Ambassadors, Galgotia's University, and School of Computer Sciences. As you all know, cloud computing is only the future of computing, but the present and the entire last undoubtedly one of the most radical and innovative in today's world of technology. So, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Rohini Gaonkar, Senior Developer Advocate AWS. She brings over a decade of experience in the IT industry, primarily focusing on cloud computing technologies with AWS since January of 2014. She had worked on multiple roles, including being a solution architect in India as well as in Singapore also and all around the Asia. As a solution architect, she has focused on the need of cloud native customers and the actively involved in the DevOps and container spaces and much more. So, with a brief introduction, I would like to request Ms. Rohini to continue the session from here. Ma'am, please.
So, thanks for the introduction and welcome everyone to the session that we have today. It's really amazing to be present and speaking to a lot of community that we have for AWS. And as Anjani mentioned, I have been with AWS for last 6+ years. I started my journey in IT itself with cloud computing over a decade ago, and I instantly fell in love with AWS, and it has been a dream to work with AWS for last so many years. I've done multiple roles at AWS. So right now I am a developer advocate. So I work with a lot of community members, and I help them grow on AWS, and share my knowledge, whatever I've worked with while I've been at AWS, and I'm just here to share it all with you. If you are interested to know more about AWS, or you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me via Twitter, via LinkedIn. I've also recently started my YouTube channel. So I have not done much. I just started in July, but I have two videos with some AWS folks, and I've been discussing a lot more about training, certification, about career advice, or people have a lot of similar questions. Almost all of us go through similar phases in our lives, and I get similar questions from everyone. So I thought I'll create a repository of these questions and answers, and if anyone has those questions, can just go ahead and listen to them, and I'm always here to answer more of your queries. With that, let's start with today's discussion. For today's discussion, I did want to keep it a bit more generic, I mean basic, because while I understand a lot of you must be doing a lot of amazing stuff. I think basics are still required if we want to be successful. If you don't understand the base, if you don't have a strong foundation, anything you build on that will be like will not be that strong and can fall with just a bit heavy wind, right? So we'll talk about why AWS. We'll talk about cloud adoption journey of customers in just a slide or two, because in the end we all want to work with some kind of customers, or we want to work on projects that will be with cloud, right? So understanding how customers typically have a journey towards cloud will help you understand where do you start in your career as well. We'll quickly look at the global infrastructure. Then we'll look at some of the high level products and services at a very high level. And this is something I've built on my own, the first hour on AWS, because I've seen a lot of customers not doing this. Like they have been on the platform for almost 5 6 years, but never done some of these steps. And if you as students, or you are a customer and you have new AWS accounts, I do want to share a bit of a knowledge with you that maybe someone has not shared or is not available elsewhere. And this comes from my learning over the years, right? And towards the end, I do have a section, I do have a lot of links to guide you on, learning path, or how do you do certifications, where do I start, some of the, or getting hands-on experience, how do I do that, some of the links around that. Uh, don't worry about the links. I do have these slides uploaded to different online websites, so I'll share those as well with you. But just one more thing, I have couple of things that I have given, I want you to have as a stretch goal. Okay, so just take a note of these, have a notepad handy. It can be any kind of notepad, just keep it handy, and some things you can go ahead and explore yourself, because not, I don't believe in spoon feeding anyone. I will help you, how to find the information, but then you need to go ahead and start searching for that. So keep something ready with yourself, just couple of things, and I'm sure you'll be happy to know about different things that not everyone really knows about. Okay, so let's start with the introduction to cloud and introduction to AWS itself. So, by definition, cloud computing means that anything, anything that can be delivered, anything like an IT resource or an application that can be delivered, on demand. On demand as in, I want it right now, I want a virtual machine right now, I want this kind of storage right now, and it is available to you with few click of buttons. Within few minutes it is available to you, right? And this availability comes via the internet. So how do you request this resource, how do you get access to this resource, is going to be via the internet with the pay as you go pricing. Now, if I have to explain pay as you go pricing to my mother, that would be as simple as, hey, you need to charge your phone right now, it's on low battery, I need to find a plug, I need to plug it in and switch on a button. The moment I switch on a button, I start consuming electricity. The moment I start consuming electricity, there is a meter in your society, right, which has a meter on and keeps counting how many units you have consumed. And that is what essentially happens with cloud computing as well. The moment you request a resource, you start paying for that resource. Now my mobile is completely charged, I don't need it, I just go ahead and switch it off, and now I stop paying for that usage. Now I don't have any usage, so I'm not paying anymore for that, right? So that is essentially what it means with pay as you go pricing. uh, I hope this definition helps you understand cloud computing, because this is a basic definition that will differentiate cloud computing from anyone who has a local data center, because a local data center is more from a private consumption, and data centers have, like, we've come a long way, right? So when cloud computing started 10 years ago, and it was still a buzzword, and I remember I was doing a lot of POCs with different cloud vendors, and that time it was a lot more on infrastructure, because how it evolved was from infrastructure, right? Because before that, a lot of customers had to build their own data centers. They had to, and there is a lot of work that goes in a data center. First is they will have to understand what are the requirements, what is that they're trying to build. Then they have to actually purchase the racks of servers and storage and networking and cables and have them delivered. They needed a location where they can actually have this data center. They had to create isolation or insulations inside the data center, because your servers get hot and they needed to be cooled with lot of blasting AC. So all that work had to be done before you actually even start creating any kind of application that will help you grow the business, right? So there was a lot of work that was done. Then came a time when people used to rent out spaces where you could go and keep your own servers, or someone will have physical servers and you can go and access them. And that's how the evolution came towards cloud computing. Now you don't have to go anywhere. That data center can be anywhere in the world, because we have internet, and you can access it via the internet sitting here in Mumbai, and maybe access a server sitting in US, right? So that has been a fundamental change in the way of thinking with respect to providing IT resources. So what is AWS? Now AWS is a cloud, but now, as I mentioned, like initially it was infrastructure, but then as the cloud evolved, as the requirements evolved, as the technology evolved over the decade or so, cloud has become much more. So AWS provides you a broad, deep platform that helps its customers, AWS's customers, to build a sophisticated, scalable, and secure applications. I'll do touch base upon a bit more about scalable and security, but that is what in just AWS is. Now, why do customers choose AWS, right? What sets AWS as a choice for a lot of customers? First thing is agility. Now, it allows the customer teams to actually it allows customers team to actually experiment and innovate quickly and frequently. What we mean by that is, now because it's accessible for within minutes, you can use it. If you don't need it, you can just terminate it and you stop paying for it. So your cost of experimenting has gone down. You don't have to wait for months, wait for the hardware to be delivered and then it to be installed and set up, and then I'll get access to it. And once you got access to it, you played with it, and if it doesn't work out, that that cost of experiment is too high. Then you will be like, oh, why did you order so much? Why did you waste so much time if it was going to fail, right? So that mindset has completely changed. Now you can experiment, now you can play with things, and this is what has helped grow a lot of startups, right? So why does cloud a choice for a lot of startups? Because now startups can, create their application. You've seen so many in your life, right? You've seen so many games come in. Oh, this is awesome game, and everyone wants to get onto that game. There's a lot of hype around it. People play for with it for months, and then it just dies down. The whole enthusiasm of that game just dies down. So that startup can then shut down that game and start on something else without worrying about, oh, I've invested so much upfront capital, and what do I do with it, right? And that's what we talked about. Cost savings as well. We talked about how you don't have to have lower upfront cost. You can just invest. As long as you're using it, you can control that kind of cost and then start consuming it. Then there is elasticity. There is no guessing of capacity. You can cloud is, virtually, and I'm doing this with my double quotes in my hands here, virtually unlimited. So you can scale up and scale down based on demand. Now, scale up, scale down, scale in, scale out, they are different terminologies. I'll try and answer them a bit further, but you can do that with cloud computing. And now, because you can experiment faster, you can also innovate faster, right? You now, infrastructure is not a differentiator for you. Your business is the differentiator for you, right? We've seen so many startups actually disrupting the market, right? That has been with few enterprises over the years. Then you have, as I mentioned, you can sit in Mumbai and you can access something sitting in US because your customers are sitting in US and you want to have application in US. You can store it in the US data center, so you can go global in minutes. And we will talk about this with the global infrastructure endpoint, right? The next one is definitely service breadth and depth. We have 175 plus fully featured services that range from a lot of different varieties, and we'll talk about that as well. So before we go there, let's talk about AWS and its customer. So for a new customer, how do a new customer get started on cloud? First and foremost, a new customer will always start with a small project. Okay, so they may have a low hanging fruit. They may have a simple application that, it's okay, it's not like so critical for us. Just try and host this on the cloud and see how, what are the performance benefits, what are price benefits. Let's experiment with it. Let's have a simple POC. Let's have a simple POC is proof of concept, or let's have a project on cloud. Then you have the customer sees, oh, I okay, this makes sense. Okay, this is giving me this kind of cost saving. This seems interesting. Can I do more foundational setup on the cloud? So they set up a lot more services on the cloud that can be like, the new upcoming things that they have. They may be doing that on the cloud itself. Then they have migration as well. So their local data centers may be decommissioning. There is always hardware refresh that needs to happen in data centers. So that may be coming up soon. And they want to also migrate everything that they had on premise to a cloud. And next, Next is modernization. Now they are on the cloud. You can't have the same mindset that the way you build your applications on premise, you can't have the same mindset to, build applications on the cloud platform. You have to go a bit more cloud native. You have to build applications, modernize your applications, make them more scalable, have them more loosely coupled, in a way that you can utilize cloud in a better way. And last but not the least, then there is this continuous reinvention. Now that you're on cloud, you want to do more. Now you're saving more, so you want to invest that back into business. You're adding more features. You keep doing more continuous reinvention in the cloud. So a lot of customers are there, not just startups, not just enterprise. We have a lot of customers, even in public sector. You can find a lot more familiar logos in the slide, and like you've seen Netflix, right? Or you've seen NASA. So you can see a lot more familiar logos on the slide. So AWS has a lot of customers, like millions and millions of customers across the world, right? And there are also something called as SIs and ISV. I am also going to talk a bit more about SIs and ISVs. Uh, we have a partner network. What we mean by partner network is these are our consulting partners. They focus on, like, I did talk about migration, I did talk about modernization. A lot of our partners can help our customers who may not have that kind of knowledge in their own organization, but they want someone else's help to be able to do it quickly, or to be able to do it with best practices, or help them with the journey itself, right? Or manage it for them. So we have a lot of partner ecosystem that does that. So if you know, a lot of these companies, they also have AWS, or they have cloud or teams in them who can work with AWS and work with a lot of customers to move them to the cloud. And then on the other side, we also have marketplace, right? And marketplaces for customers, like, AWS cannot build everything, right? I mean, for example, we are not into antivirus business. There are people, there are customers, or there are products which are amazing at what they do, and we don't want to keep reinventing the wheel. So there is a marketplace on AWS for products that you can just have one click deployment, and it will be available to you in the AWS cloud. There is also, while I mentioned partner network, there are SIs. There are SIs as in system integrators, like your companies like Infosys, or they are like more like consulting partners for AWS. And then there are ISVs. ISVs are more like products that can be hosted on marketplace, and then that can be served to the customer. So that's the basic differentiation between the partner network itself. So let's talk a bit more about the AWS global infrastructure, right? In the first 5 years, we had 4 regions across the world. So you can see there was only Singapore in the APAC region, right? The next 5 years, we actually launched 7 regions across the world. And after that, since just in last 4 5 years, we have 13 regions and one local region. And this is where that thing came interesting, right? Take a note and do your own research. There is something called as one local region, and there is also one local AZ, or availability zone. If you're interested in understanding these terminologies, just go ahead and do some research around that. It's fun what AWS is trying to do in this area, and how it is trying to serve its customers better in the future, right? So we already have 3 more announced across the world. uh, so this is just to provide you an idea about, so for example, if we are looking at Mumbai, right? If we are looking at Mumbai has something like bracket में 3 AZs. There are 3 availability zones, okay? And we will talk about availability zones and regions in the next slide. So before I talk about AZs or regions, let's understand a data center. So what an availability zone could be is one or more data centers. Okay. And if you are planning to give any AWS certification, you need to understand this multi-AZ kind of a framework. So listen intently. Data center, you understand a data center. Okay. So one or more data centers become one availability zone. Okay. So one or more availability zones, that is so two or more clusters of these data centers will become one AWS region. Okay, just again, one or more data centers become an availability zone, two or more availability zones become one AWS region. And this multi availability zone is required for high availability, high scalability, and high fault tolerance. Now, what that means is, for example, let's consider these two availability zones. Okay. And my application, it's a best practice, it's a recommendation that when you're hosting your application, one half of your application should be here and the other half should be here. Okay, and both the halves should be live. The ACs are connected to each other with sub-second latency, so don't worry about that. But you host your application in both the availability zones. So for some reason, even after having redundant power, redundant networking, connectivity, having so much redundancy in, something goes wrong with one of the availability zones. So for example, there's a flooding in one of the availability zone, the other availability zone is still available for you to use. That means your application is still running. Even if it is running in some kind of a degraded manner, your application is still up and running, and you can start scaling in this availability zone to ensure that your customers' demand is met. I hope that is understandable right now. So there are two availability zones. So we request customers to have multi-availability zone kind of an architecture when they're hosting it. And I'll come to an architecture, sample application architecture towards the end, and I'll try and explain it again. So bear with me. So there is also something called as CloudFront. CloudFront is nothing but a content delivery network. It's a CDN service from AWS. We have lots of points of presence across the world. This also has a lot of differences. So if you're interested, if you're interested in CDNs, you can go ahead and read more on edge locations and what are regional edge caches, etc., etc. CloudFront, you can think of it as so CloudFront, many people have a bit of less understanding towards it, because when I do interviews, I know I keep asking this question and I don't really, like, out of 100, I think 70% of the time I don't get a right answer. So CloudFront does static and dynamic content caching as well. Okay, so what I mean by caching in this place, let's talk about caching. So for example, you have your application is in hosted in the Mumbai region. Okay, and majority of your customers are in India, but then there are some NRIs who are sitting maybe in the US. Okay, and they want to access your application. Now every time a US customer wants to access some data from your Mumbai data center, the request will flow through internet latencies to Mumbai. It will ask for that file, it'll come back and give it to the customer. So the latency, the performance of your application will be different for someone sitting here to performance for someone sitting here. Okay, it may be milliseconds ka difference, but there is still a difference. And for some kind of applications, for games, this difference is quite big, right? So there is this difference that a lot of applications cannot bear with. So what you can do is you can use something like CloudFront, where it has all these marked points across the world. What CloudFront will essentially do is, first time someone accesses the file here from Mumbai region, it will go and store copy somewhere in the edge location that is closer to your customer. Okay, and the next time someone else asks for that same file, it will not go back to Mumbai, it will access it from the local cache that it had. So this time that was spent on internet latencies, that is reduced significantly, right? So your application's performance gets boosted in that way. For dynamic content, so static means your images, your HTML files, your video files that you want to share, right? For dynamic, as in, oh, some query has come in and you need to, for example, go to a database and come back with a response. For dynamic queries, CloudFront does something a lot more actually. You can read on that. So you can search for AWS CloudFront dynamic content, and you can see that it does a lot of things. So if you know your TCP three-way handshake, it helps you keep the TCP connections on a long haul. It can improve the performance of that. It can also have a TTL of 0. There's a lot of things that you can do. Just as CloudFront supports both static and dynamic content. Okay. The next one is global network. Now, global network of like, direct connect, and we already have these lines, but then what is direct connect? See, remember we talked about cloud being used over the internet. There are a lot of customers who don't want to use it over the internet. There are a lot of reasons for that. Security concerns, the latency factors that we talked about, and these customers want a dedicated pipeline from their data centers or their offices to the cloud. Okay, and that's where the MPLS line or the direct connect lease line kind of infrastructure comes in, so they can ask for a direct connect from their data centers or offices to the nearest AWS region that they have, and they can utilize that. Let's go to products and services. This is an important slide because I still, for some reason, one or two people just come in and ask me, "Oh, AWS is only for infrastructures. I am a developer. What can I do with AWS? Is AWS for me?" Yes, it is for you. So let me try to make sense of this slide. Don't worry, the text is small. There's not a name of any services. It's just use cases, or the reasons why AWS has so many services. By the way, little trivia: services, because they are all APIs. So AWS provides all of this via some kind of APIs, and you can access them with, with all of the different channels that we'll discuss in later. So let's talk about infrastructure. We talked about regions, availability zones, and points of presence. So if you can see my green pointer, that's towards the corner. You can see that we talked about infrastructure. Then, if you are a person who's going to manage the AWS account, if you're a person who is going to be like a system engineer or an operations person, or you are a SRE, whatever role you could be, or you're a VP of DevOps, or you're going to do something with respect to DevOps, or just in case you're like someone who has to work with certain technologies but still needs to understand a bit of infrastructure, I recommend almost everyone should understand the core services, because everything else that AWS provides is actually based on the core services. So if you don't understand the core very well, you're going to struggle understanding few other managed services that AWS provides, right? So from compute, we will talk a bit more in detail on compute today. But there's a lot in compute that AWS provides apart from virtual machines, right? Then there is storage. There is different types of storage. There is object storage. There is block storage. There is file storage. And when you think of data, you have to always think of data from a range of hot to cold. Okay, so you think of data from hot to cold. You understand, okay, my data is, it need to be accessed frequently. It needs to be in hot. If my data needs to be accessed very infrequently, like, it needs to be in cold storage, where it is like an archive that I have, maybe once or 2 years I may need that file, but I need to store it. Then you go towards the cold side, and AWS gives you services across this range. So you can have S3 as a standard storage. You could store it for like, frequently accessed data. But then there is something like a Glacier as a service, where you can store archive data, and within them they have different levels as well, where you can understand, okay, what kind of data I have, what kind of access do I need, what kind of SLAs I'm okay to be worried about, and you can select the particular tier. Okay, from a networking perspective, I do have a discussion on the architecture piece, but there is a lot more. We talked about direct connect, we talked about the global infrastructure that we have. We will talk about VPC in a moment. From a databases, AWS provides a lot of databases. I'll also try and show you the different kinds of databases AWS has, but obviously we need some kind of persistent store, and that's where databases come in. We talked about CloudFront or the CDN part of it. And the next important thing that you need to know is security and compliance. Security is number one priority for us, right? So everything, because the mindset is for a customer, if a mindset is, oh, I'm storing everything that I have, and everything like the data, that IP I have, into someone else's servers, which I may not be able to see, which I don't know where they are, how am I going to trust that person? And to have that trust, it takes a lot of work with respect to security, and with respect to compliance, with respect to laws, adhering to laws. And that's why security is our number one priority, so that we have that trust with our customers that their data is safe and secure. And we will talk about shared responsibility model in a while, but that's how you look at security. Then there is everything else, from management tools to analytics to DevOps to mobile services to machine learning, and everything else then sits on the core framework of core services. Then you have the marketplace that we talked about, and then there is like support that is available, like technical support. If you need troubleshooting help, you need any hands on guidance with someone, you can just buy support and do that. And then there is other teams at the AWS system. So with compute, so while we are talking about core services, I'll just quickly brief you on the core services. So compute options is definitely virtual machines, containers, and lambdas. This is how I would break the compute options on AWS. Okay. So the first one is virtual machines. So you have a lot of options on the AWS platform for compute, right? So you have 275 plus instance types. I'm sure that number is higher than what I have here. But how do you think about these? You think about these from different categories. Okay, you think of what are the different categories, what is my need, and then select a particular instance type. So for example, you have something like a database, okay, and this database needs a lot of memory. So you look at something like memory intensive instance types, and then you can select, do you want a like a medium or a large or a small or a micro kind of a like how you have t-shirt sizes. Similarly, you can go ahead and select, oh, I need a memory instance type of maybe a large capacity, and I'm going to launch it, right? And you start paying for that capacity that you've provisioned. So you start thinking of different categories, you start thinking of different capabilities. And these are like GPUs or anything. If you're doing machine learning and you need more GPUs, you can go ahead and select those instances that have more capacity for GPUs. There's a lot more like differences, different capabilities that are available for these different general categories. And finally, you have storage capabilities and etc. With EC2. Now EC2 itself is a very vast topic, which even if you give a date, it's not going to finish. So uh, but it's an interesting and very basic core service that you should be aware of. Quickly, because I told you, I'll tell you about scaling. There is a service called as auto scaling that will allow you to scale out and scale in. So in AWS, there are two types of scaling. Okay, there is horizontal scaling and there is vertical scaling. What I mean by vertical scaling, now let's take an example. For example, I have a MacBook that has 16 GB of memory. Okay, and I feel, oh, okay, I'm fine with 16 GB memory, it works fine, this is enough capacity for me. But over the time, I want to play a game, I'm doing some machine learning modeling, I don't know, I'm doing something that is taking a lot of memory on my MacBook, and now memory or CPU on my MacBook, and I want to upgrade it to a 32 GB or a 64 GB machine. What do I have to do in real world scenarios? You will have to stop it, you will have to buy a new memory, install it, upgrade it, or you just, if it's MacBook, you just give it away and get a new one, right? But but in the cloud world, if you have to upgrade or downgrade in the way of changing capacity for that same machine, you would have to just stop that machine, change its configuration from say large to extra large, and start it up again. And it's that as simple as that. So you're scaling up as with a start stop, and you're scaling down with a start stop. Okay, so when it's the same machine that you're upgrading and downgrading, you call it as scale up and scale down, if you think. But not all applications are built like that, and there is a lot of I could say limitations of doing that, because there is only how much up you can go, right? After that, you're going to hit some kind of a ceiling, and it's going to be like, oh, you cannot upgrade more than this, right? So what we generally see that many applications can scale out. Okay, and typically your stateless kind of applications, if you don't know what stateless is, please note it down, take read about stateful versus stateless applications. But your stateless applications can scale out, that is, you can add more virtual machines of the same size into the same set, or scale in, that is, remove virtual machines in that from that set. Okay, and auto scaling can do this automatically. So auto scaling can react to the changes in your workload. So for example, the same example we took, you have a game that you published. Oh, the game suddenly saw a lot of uptake, people are interested in your game, and everyone's just rushing to your game, right? And how many times we have seen that games who had not planned for that kind of scale have failed, right? They have a lot of issues scaling uh, to the demand that is coming in. So auto scaling can take care of some of these factors where it can scale out based on the demand that is coming in. So for example, you have two machines and the average of these two machines is higher than 70%. Auto scaling, please add one more machine. You can set this configuration and automatically auto scaling will add one more machine. If you think that, oh, I have three machines and their average utilization is less than 20%, I can go ahead and just have two virtual machines, I don't need three. Auto scaling will randomly remove one of those. So you can do a lot with auto scaling in that sense. There's a lot of features that have come into auto scaling. I remember I started my cloud journey when auto scaling was just launched, and since then to till date, there has been so many changes in the way the service behaves, the way it scales, with heterogeneous instances and spot instances. We'll talk about those in a bit, but there's a lot of different things that have happened with auto scaling, and I feel if you have a simple application, just go ahead and play with it, because the service itself is free. The virtual machines that you launch with that service is not. And there are also other AWS services that support auto scaling, like DynamoDB has its own auto scaling as well. So from an orchestration perspective, if you see container registry, it's similar to, like, you have public Docker Hub, right, where you have container images on Docker Hub. So if you want your own private registry for your Docker container or Docker images, you can have something like a container registry in AWS. There is EC2, there is Fargate. I'll come to this in a minute, because I get a lot of questions with this. There is also an orchestration layer. So if you know Kubernetes, we also have our own flavor, our own managed service for Kubernetes. We do give back to the Kubernetes upstream packages. So it's the same Kubernetes that you have externally. And we also have our own orchestration service that has been for like 4 5 years now. So it's very stable and very simple to use, something called as ECS. Now, when I mean compute engine, right? So there is EC2. If you have to add AWS any service, there is two things. There is EC2 and there is anything managed. Okay. What I mean is that with EC2, you have full control. You can install whatever you need into EC2. You can install applications, play with them. You can configure them. You can do backup. You can do, encryption, everything on your own. Like, you have the full control to do that. But then there are other sets of managed services that came from a lot of customer feedback. Now, customers kept saying, like, hey, I've been doing this for a long time, I don't want to take care of this responsibility. Can you create a service for me that will take care of all this? I just want to worry about my data, or in this case, I just want to worry about my containers or my application that is sitting on those containers. I don't want to worry about actually EC2 instance, what is its size, how many EC2 instances do I need, how do I auto scale. I don't want to know all of that. Just take my instance, deploy it, and scale it for my application. And that's essentially what Fargate does. Okay. So there is EC2 and then there is managed services. I hope that clears one of the doubt. If you are interested in both the orchestration layers, there is a very good workshop for both of them. And it has beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels. So you can have a look at these workshops as well. The next is serverless. Serverless is not just compute or not just Lambda. If people keep saying, like, "Oh, we are doing Lambda, we are doing serverless," it's not just that. Serverless is a lot more. It's compute, it's integration, it's data stores. Uh, I do talk about it a lot in my serverless talks, but there's a lot more to serverless than just compute. And what we mean by serverless is there is no server. No, there is server, but that servers are managed by someone else. So in this case, AWS manages the servers, and you worry about, in case of Lambda, you worry about the code, you worry about the application architecture and your application, right? In Fargate, you worry about your containers or the application code sitting in the containers. how this code is running on what kind of infrastructure, what kind of servers. That all is taken care by AWS. And this is what I keep saying to people who are like developers who want to focus on development. I'm not just saying developers to look at serverless. Developers could be front end, could be back end, could be full stack, could be working with infra as well. I don't mind that. But cloud has a lot more for developers than they actually think about, right? Because all these services are created using some kind of application language, and most of them support your typical JavaScript, your typical Node.js or Python kind of languages, right? So you can do a lot more with these services if you are from a development background. The next is obviously DevOps tools. There are DevOps tools on AWS. You're free to use either of these. You're free to use whatever you want. Like a lot of customers use, sorry, typical tools like Jenkins, Ansible, Terraform. That is fine as long as it's working on AWS. We are fine with what tools you're using. There is while you may understand this is a typical flow of your DevOps pipeline, and you may know CloudFormation. It's like infrastructure as code, kind of a service. Another stretch goal for you. Take a note of if you're into development and you still want to understand how you can have infrastructure as code. Look at something called as CDK. CDK is Cloud Development Kit. Have a look at it. It's a very interesting topic. I've played with it a lot of times and I've done sessions around it. So it's quite fun as to what we developers can do with infrastructure, right? So that's another stretch goal for you. You can use any of these IDs, any of your favorite IDs to work with cloud. There is no restrictions. There is an AWS toolkit that comes up with these IDs, so you can connect AWS directly from your ID. You don't even have to open the console for that matter. For databases, quickly we'll look at some of the relational databases. Like there is RDS, and it supports almost 5 engines like MySQL, PostgreSQL, Maria, Oracle, and SQL Server. And there is also Aurora. So what is the difference between this and this? This is a simple MySQL flavor that you get with MySQL anywhere else, but in a managed form. That is AWS. You take care. AWS, please take care of the installation, the patching of the MySQL engine, the backup and restoration on the replication of the database. Everything taken care by AWS. You worry about your MySQL databases, right? With Aurora, we have taken up MySQL source code and we have modified it to be better performant, and we have created a service called as Amazon Aurora, because MySQL is the open source part of MySQL. We picked it up. We have sorry, modified the source code and made it much better to work with the AWS ecosystem, and that's how Aurora came into place. There is also Aurora serverless feature with these for these two flavors. So if you don't even want to worry about the start stop of the servers and the scalability of the database servers, there's a serverless option as well. From the other databases, there are a lot of different types of databases like Graph and Time Series and NoSQL with DynamoDB kind of databases if you're interested. Then we have machine learning. Machine learning has three stacks. So the lower stack is for ML practitioners who are interested in doing everything hands-on. They want to work on their frameworks and interfaces, and they want to work on the infrastructure. There's a stack for that. Then there is SageMaker, where it has automated a lot of things for the machine learning pipeline, right? So machine learning also has something like a DevOps pipeline in it, where you have to build, train, deploy, kind of all these activities that need to be done. SageMaker helps you do these today in an automated way. And then there are AI services, right? So there is recognition for like face recognition, for images, for videos. You can also extract text. Then you have poly and transcribe for speech recognition, and there's a lot more than what I'm showing here. To be honest, I need to update the slide, but there is a lot of AI services that we have today, right? So if you are into machine learning, it's a really amazing place to be. So security, I'll quickly walk through security. So when we talk about security at AWS, there's two parts to it. One is uh, because of shared responsibility model, right? So we share the responsibility. So AWS is responsible for security of the cloud. So anything below the operating system that you, so let's say you go to EC2 and say, hey, I need a virtual machine of Linux operating system. So anything below that Linux operating system is taken care by AWS, from the hypervisor to the physical security of that data center, right? So everything is taken care by AWS. Okay. Anything above. So now you have provisioned that Linux virtual machine. Anything that you put on that virtual machine and whatever you do with that virtual machine is your responsibility as a customer. Okay, so that's how a shared responsibility model works in that we give you the tools. So there is, it's nothing like we are brushing off the responsibility. We definitely give the tools that are required to secure it, but it's a customer's choice to want it or not, right? So for example, you as an enterprise customer may have very stringent policies on what kind of securities they need, for their application, and they can go ahead and utilize these different tools and implement that kind of level of security. A new startup or someone like you, a student who's like, I'm just playing with it, I'm not so worried about security of my data, of my application, I just want to experiment and shut it off. It's not an IP, it's not a data that that I'm okay with having being left unsecured. You may not want all those kind of policies, and you should have that option to do it, right? There are a lot of things that we ask customers, like it's kind of a mandate to have these things, but or by default you should have these things, but most of the tools that we give are configurable by our customers. So a lot of people even ask that, hey, can do you know the location of the AWS data centers? Sorry, AWS employees don't know the location of data centers. These are not disclosed. We do disclose the city, like we say Mumbai has AWS region, but we don't actually disclose the location. And this is for security perspective, right? So if I allow person one to go and visit the data center, I will have to allow person two. And if you see, then data center will be like a park and everyone wants to go and see the data center, and you can't have the security in control, and someone's data may get lost or stolen, right? So no one's allowed to go to a data center. But then we work with a lot of these country regulations. We work with a lot of regulators and auditors to generate a lot of reports that can prove the security, that can showcase that what kind of security is there on the AWS platform, how is the data secured, what are the mechanisms used, how you do decommissioning of hardware, and what are the processes that are used. So that kind of documentation is available for everyone to use. So quickly, let's do the first hour on AWS kind of a discussion, right? I understand most of you may be students, so you are not worried about having an AWS account. But the first one to work with AWS is us to have an account, right? And you create an account. By default, a regular customer will create an account using a credit card. Using a credit card, so they have to be worried about how they're spending, because they're going to get charged via credit card, right? And the second point doesn't apply to you, but if you are creating an account for an organization, let's say you have a student organization or a community and you want an AWS account for them, always have group email aliases. Don't keep like Arjun at the rate something.com, because what if Arjun leaves? What if Arjun doesn't see his emails that AWS sends, which are important with respect to your account, with payment, or any other security incident? Don't rely on just that one person if it's a group activity, right? So have group email alias and add a lot of people into it, so that 4 5 or 2 3 people at the least get that email and are able to act on it. There are different account strategies that a lot of companies have. So from an account perspective, just to give it in a layman term, think of an AWS account as one house that you have, made of different bedrooms and different bedrooms and bathrooms and all. And you as a enterprise have different departments or BUs in your organization. Now everyone wants to have access to AWS. Now if you give all of them access to one house, you will not know who's using the internet more. You will not know who's using the electricity or the water, or who's using the facilities more, and you can't have that kind of controls. What enterprises do is they have different accounts for different BUs, because every house, like how you have a house and your house gets a meter for electricity, same way every AWS account will get their billing charges, right? So they will know, okay, this team or BU is using a lot of these resources. What are you doing? Are you spending it correctly? Are you not being hygienic about the resources that you're creating? What are you doing in the cloud? So there can be a lot of governance and monitoring in that sense. Some accounts, some customers are very small, they will like, oh, I want one account, there's just one team that accesses it. But then we still ask them to create production in different non-prod VPCs. I'll show it later, uh, how they do it. And there is a lot more that you can do there. You can have centralized accounts, like parent child kind of accounts, structures and all this is for security, governance and management of the accounts. How do you access the AWS APIs? I told you, right? All these services are APIs. How do you access them? Obviously, you have an AWS web console. All of us start from a simple web interface to AWS. Then there are a lot of them who like to do command line, like from a terminal want to access the AWS APIs, they can do that. Also, I showed you some IDEs, you can use IDEs to do that. You can also have a lot of SDKs. So if you are building an application that has to, for example, I upload a photo and that photo has to go and be stored in AWS S3 bucket, then you can use the SDK to create that kind of application. And as my stretch goal was infrastructure as code, do check out infrastructure as code with CloudFormation and with CDK. So, how do you select the right region? Generally, typically, everyone looks at latency. I told you about internet latencies, right? There is always going to be something like internet latency at play. So, you would always try to keep your region that is closer to your user base. So, for example, 70% of my users are from India, and rest 30 are like all those NRIs outside India. I'll keep my data center or my region as in closer to India as possible, right? Then there are compliance and data privacy laws. So, for example, financial institutions in India are being told to have, last 7 years of, I'm just giving some examples, but last 7 years of data, they need to store that, and the data cannot get out of India. If all the data that needs to be kept has to be kept in India, right? So that is the data privacy laws of that country that you're serving in, right? So you have to adhere to that. So take a note of these and select your region. The next is services. Not all AWS services will be launched in all the regions, right? At first, we obviously try our best to, roll out these services to almost all the regions. But at first, they are always launched into few of the regions in the world. If you're interested to know why, please post a comment. I'll be happy to answer this question in a very generic term. But if you're interested to know why, I'll please post a question about this in the comment section, and we'll take it in the Q&A part. Then last but not the least, there is service pricing, right? The prices differ from region to region. If you're a student, you want to play with AWS and you want to keep your cost low, I would suggest you do that in US East 1, US hyphen East hyphen 1, because US East 1 is the cheapest AWS region that we have so far, and you can experiment there with the lowest possible prices that we have. And a lot of customers do that. They do their production maybe in India, but then they have their development centers maybe sitting out of US East or some other place just to keep the cost low. Okay, and they don't worry about latencies for development stores, so that is fine. And something new that has come up with AWS is enable or disable your regions. So you can do that. Please go ahead and do that, because as humans, you saw, right, so many AWS regions are there across the world. We will only maybe look at Mumbai region or Singapore region or US East 1, right? What will happen in those other regions? You may not even open up the services or accounts in the services in those regions, right? So it may happen that if you God forbid if you got hacked or something, or you shared your credentials with someone and they started creating these resources in another region, you will get alert if you've set any pricing alerts, or by the end of the month you'll come to know, oh, okay, that someone created this in other region, and what do I do with it, right? So there are a lot of security practices. I do want to talk about that in the next slide, but do try disabling regions that you're not using today. And you can find the AWS region table. Just search AWS region table, and you should be able to find the service availability table on the net. Then next is definitely security 101. The email address and the password that you use to create the AWS account, it is called as your root account. Okay. If that root account has something called as access keys, like access keys and secret keys, delete those. Never use those root account, because root account is like your main door, your ghar ke main door keys, right? If you're gonna keep those open and you're gonna let someone else duplicate it and use your house, there is no other way of controlling, right? So if someone gets into your house and locks the door from inside, the only way is to break in, and how are you going to do that with AWS, right? So it's don't use that. For yourself to work with your AWS account, create an IAM user with the required permissions, like maybe an administrator permissions. Create an IAM user and use that IAM user to do whatever you need with your AWS account. Okay. This is day one kind of, or a first hour activity. You should create an IAM user for yourself. Give it a strong password, that maybe you want to change every 3 or 6 months. Give it a very strong password. Don't just keep password 123. Everyone knows that is a very lame password to keep. Just keep a strong password. Enforce multi-factor authentication. I'm not on video. I would have showed you a Gemalto. You could either have a physical token, or you could have a virtual applications like Authy or Google Authenticator, where it generates an OTP. So you can use that OTP as your second factor authentication, right? So you use MFA for your root account and for your IAM users. Okay. Please do this, because this is very important if you have to do it. And last but not the least, anything you need access, let's say you're creating an SDK, using an SDK in your application, and you want to give your application access to S3, or you want to give it access to some other resource, give only that access. Okay, don't give just administrative access to everything and then keep searching, oh, who's doing this activity, or I don't even know like what permissions it needs. Give least privileges. Even security groups which are like firewalls, we'll talk about that. Keep restricted access. Don't open like 0.0.0 like TCP all to 0.0.0.0/0, that is like open to internet, right? You're just calling for trouble, nothing else. A lot of purchasing options. I'll just keep it briefly because I want to come towards the architecture. But there are a lot of purchasing options. I talked about on demand, like click switch on button and start using it, switch off and stop using and pay for that. That is the basic one. There is also provisioned one where you would say, hey, I need. Like we have all bought these storages, cloud storages, right? Like, hey, I need 100 GB of cloud storage somewhere, right? The same way, same kind of a principle applies here. You can provision capacity beforehand, and then there is reservation. You're not really provisioning capacity, you're just saying, hey, I may need 10 EC2 instances of this capacity for another year. Okay, and it's a long term commitment. It could be 1 or 3 years for another year. So by saying that, by giving that kind of commitment, AWS gives you some kind of discount in the back, right? And AWS gives you a discount, so customers do these kind of, and these are heavy discounts that AWS gives, right? So customers are okay to give that kind of commitment to AWS. Okay. So a lot of services will support multiple billing options from these. Now when you talk about, sorry, when you talk about these different when you talk about these different purchasing options, right? We talked about on demand, it's per second, not per hour. You pay per second. Uh, the pricing on the web page is per hour, yes, because you can't have like tiny, tiny, tiny dot per second, right? I mean, it used to be per hour. Now we charge you per second, but the pricing on the page is still per hour. So the next one is risk out instances and savings plans, almost similar, based on the commitment factor. It's just this one has number of instances and blah blah blah. This one is more on the monetary factor. uh, this option is for customers who have tested everything. They have kept the application running for 1 or 2 months. They know this is kind of the workload they need, and then they reserve it for a year. I don't suggest doing this on day one. So if you are doing this on day one, you are actually going to cost a lot more to yourself, because if you don't use it, it's a commitment. If you commit and you don't actually use, you're still going to pay for it. Okay, so don't do this on day one. As a student, experiment with on demand and with spot pricing. Spot instances, please note, we have given away with spot bidding 2 years ago. Okay, and we don't do bidding anymore. There is no bidding option on spot today. Spot has lower pricing than on demand, yes, but that is not because you are bidding against someone else. Okay, there is no auctioning of spot anymore. Uh, I can't stress on it enough. And then spot is the spare capacity that is left behind after giving it on demand. This and this, there is some spare capacity that is left in the data center. We give it back to our customers at a cheaper cost. The only downside is that you get a 2 minute termination warning. So if a customer says is ready to pay on demand cost, then and we are running out of capacity, we may take it out of spot. Happens very rarely now. There is a lot more intelligence that has come up with spot. So take a note of this. Look and go ahead and read more about spot instances if you're giving any certification examinations, or if you want to understand how spot instances work. There's a lot of changes that has happened with spot. Okay. uh, I know I'm running over time, and I'm hoping that's okay with you. Free tier, there is a lot more to free tier. If you create a new AWS account with the credit card based system, okay, not other routes, the typical customer gets 12 months free. And there are some things like, not everything is 12 months free. Please, there is only like few items and few services that are free. So you can find all information on the page. There are some things that are always free, like you have 1 million Lambda executions that are free per month. And then there are some services that are trial basis. There is a tutorial. If you're going to be interested into infra part of it, or you just want to see how things work on your day one, just go ahead and search for this tutorial like Lamstock on AWS. Very simple, very easy to use this tutorial as a beginner's guide. It just hosts an EC2 instance with a web server, a Linux EC2 instance web server with a RDS database, and it will help you understand what's a VPC, subnet, security group, kya hota hai, how do you set it up. So let me quickly, this is a blank screen. I'll just show you an architecture, how to think from a best practice perspective. Okay. So this, the white box is the region. Okay, that is the AWS region that you are selecting. Okay, and a select AWS region can have two or more availability zones. So for a good graph, I just like good diagram, I just took two availability zones. Now availability, a region will have a VPC. Now look at it, that a VPC is spanned across the multiple availability zones. So a VPC is something that is bound to a region. Then you have subnets. Now subnets are within availability zone. A subnet in availability zone A is different from a subnet in availability zone B. Okay, so there are two subnets, to public, to private. Now we don't really create, go and say I want a public subnet, I want a private subnet. You create subnets, then you go ahead and modify their routing options. So there is a route table where you go ahead and modify the options that makes the subnet public or private. Okay, so if in the routing you add internet gateway, and you say that all the EC2 instances have a public IP address, it is a public subnet. Okay, if there is a subnet who doesn't have any routing options other than the local routing within the subnets, then it is a private subnet. So public subnet means anyone coming from outside can access this instances or virtual machines in this subnet. Private subnet means no one can come in from outside for the subnet. Public subnet can go out as well. Private subnet, if it needs to go out, for example, you could have virtual machines that need to update some kind of libraries on the operating system, some kind of libraries, or you need to access a repository that is sitting outside of AWS, then you can add something like a NAT gateway uh, to the private subnets, and it can have a route to go out. Okay. There is something called a security group. Take a note again, stretch goal: security group versus NACLs. NACLs is network access control list. Okay, so I call it NACLs. So security groups versus NACLs. Uh, Learn what do you mean by stateful firewalls, what is stateless firewalls. Okay, security group is a stateful firewall. You can say, what are the incoming IP addresses, what is the inbound allowed, what is outbound allowed. And remember the best practice I told you: only allow things that are needed. So for example, we'll look into a bit later in the discussion. So in public subnets, let's say for example, I'm keeping all my web servers. Okay, and I'm just adding an auto scaling group towards it. So I'm auto scaling. Take a note, it's across the availability zones. Okay, so auto scaling is happening across the different availability zones. So auto scaling will take care of adding. If you say I want 4 virtual machines, auto scaling will automatically add 2 here and 2 there. And when you have to scale, it randomly picks out an availability zone and then starts adding instances, but tries to balance it out across the different AZs. Then you have something called as ELB. There are different types of ELBs at AWS, like 3 different types. But essentially, what a classic ELB would do in this case is, now these virtual machines will have different IP addresses, right? So this one will 1, 2, 3. I mean, 192 something something dot one, something dot two, something dot three. Uh, how do you tell Elastic Load Balancer that hey, new machines are added and this is the IP address? Auto scaling takes care of it. So you don't have to worry about how many instances are in the back end, how many IP addresses they have. You don't have to worry about that. Auto scaling and load balancer takes care of it. Load balancer has a CNAME or a DNS name that you use and tell your clients to access, and they should be able to access the application. So client access ELB will then send it to backend, and backend will then send it to your databases for any persistent storage. And this is the multi-AC part I was speaking about, right? Another thing that you should add into your goal is, how does this happen? How does this multi-AC part happen? So there is a DNS name or CNAME that RDS provides. Okay, it's an endpoint that RDS provides, and this green point is, for example, the DNS name, right? And what happens is, by default, the DNS will point to the primary. Okay, and if there is any issue with the primary, the DNS will automatically start pointing towards the secondary. Whilst the primary and secondary are doing a synchronous replication, the data is available here. Okay, so the DNS will then start pointing to the secondary, and becomes the new primary, and automatically it will start a new secondary. Just try and understand, read more about it, what happens in the back when you have multi-AZ RDS setup. So this is a typical architecture that you have. Notice that I have different security groups for each layer. So Elastic Load Balancer can talk to my EC2 instance, let's say on port 8080, and all these EC2 instances, only these EC2 instances in this security group can talk to RDS instances in this security group on port, let's say 3306. Okay, no one else can access these machines from outside. That is how a security best practice is. So in a typical customer environment, you would have a dev environment where you would have development ka apna VPC. They will have their own VPC where they have their own setup, and they can have their own whatever, they can create instances and all. There would be a staging environment, because staging is for load testing, for different kind of testing that customers want to do. And finally, there will be a production environment where only the administrators, or the higher level seniors get access to production. Not everyone gets access to it. And how does the code go from dev to production is your DevOps pipeline. Okay, so you have a DevOps pipeline that will automatically push the code to production. You don't have to give developers access to your production machines. Okay, and in an immutable environment, if something goes wrong, you just replace that machine and replace that code using your DevOps pipeline, but never give access to anyone to directly log in into your production machines. So quick links about learning on AWS henceforth. There are different learning paths. You could learn depending on the different roles you are. Like you could be a developer, you could want to be an architect, or you are an operations person, or you want to be a DevOps engineer, right? So different roles, different solutions, different specialities. Based on your likings, you can select those learning paths. You can also have a lot of samples, so there's a lot of details available on, first time I want to do these things, where do I find some samples, can I look at some samples and start building on that. Or if you're a person who can follow a lot of hands-on workshops, there are a lot of workshops available, you can just use that. uh, if you're a person who wants to do free, and this is all free, okay, this is a free content. So if you're doing a lot of hands-on tutorials and projects, you can look at that. See, some of them also mention free tier, so if you have an account that has free tier, you can also create those workshops there. And the reason I'm showing again the names is because AWS is for everyone, right? There is something for everyone to work on the AWS platform, okay. There is also a lot of more free digital training. See, I'm telling you where to find free resources from AWS. There is always a lot of third-party websites who have amazing courses as well. And if you want to do that, you can do that as well. Or if you want to do it at your own pace, you can look at these as well. And finally, the certifications. You can get AWS certified. Or there are a lot of different levels. You don't have to be associate so that you can do a professional. You can just go ahead and do professional. We do recommend that you do an associate and professional. But if you are confident you want to do professional directly or specialty directly, you can do that as well. And you can now do these from home, so there is a lot of online proctoring available. I have talked in detail about certification in my YouTube videos, so please do go ahead and have a look at it, uh, as to how you can do certifications and what kind of certifications will make sense to you, and how does online proctoring work and more. Okay. uh, and finally, if you're into machine learning, there is a machine learning university. Like you can go ahead and apply there and start learning for machine learning. And finally, there are a lot of AWS events that happen around the clock. Community Day is coming up in October. So this is a free online. I don't think it's free. I'm not sure, but it's a community-driven event that is coming up, and you can go ahead and sign up for that. Reinvent is free. It's an AWS event. We have all just announced Reinvent is happening online this year. Normally, it happens in Vegas. So most of us have to travel to Vegas and attend that conference. But this year, because of COVID, we are going online. So you can freely access Reinvent, and it's over 3 weeks. So there's a lot of learning that is going to happen. We also do Summit almost April or May in India. This year, we had Summit online. A lot of content is available as well. And there is Innovate and online other awesome day conferences that have always been online. So we do a lot of marketing about that. And if you are interested to know like when does these happen, please do follow me on LinkedIn and click on that follow button in LinkedIn. And instead of just connect, just click on follow. And you can follow me on Twitter as well, and you can be notified when these happen. And with that, I just also wanted to share that the slides are present on SlideShare and Speaker Deck. So if you want to click on those links, I think you should go to SlideShare, search my name, and you'll find these. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel to give me feedback about what more would you like to hear, and I'll be happy to do that. And with that, I see a lot of questions, so I think I'm just gonna take some questions. Okay. Let's see. Uh, what type of resources AWS provides? Okay, so I think
Yeah.
we did talk about this. We did talk about this, right? We talked about what are the different IT resources AWS provides. I showed the products and services portfolio there, and there's a lot more. There's 175 plus, so you can go ahead and go to aws.amazon.com, and you can just find a list and categories of the resources, right? Next question. I think, okay, let's go down. Let's go down. Huh. Okay, interesting. So don't don't catch me for it, because if I give out the secret sauce or something like that, there's no secret sauce, to be honest. Um, you see, with me as well, I'll be honest, I worked a lot on the AWS technology, and this was when AWS was just like with everyone else, right? And everything was new, and this is when I'm talking about 2010 or something like that. So I started working with AWS around 2010, and cloud was still a new thing. It was still upcoming. There were still a lot of players who were trying to understand cloud, right? And then it was I had a lot of hands-on experience because I worked in a COE, and then it turned into a practice, and I had a lot of hands-on experience. Or I used to work with the solution architect. We used to do migrations of customer portfolios to AWS, right? So I had a lot of hands-on experience, and that helped me a lot with AWS. And I joined AWS as a support engineer. Okay, so then everyone was like, don't be a support person. If you become a support person, you'll always be a support person. But I had a love for this technology, and I had learned a lot. I used to go to summits. I used to do a lot of certifications. I mean, I used to learn a lot. I used to attend a lot of classes, and I used to do hands-on experience, right? So I had a lot of learning with respect to the platform, and it helped me. The connections, the networking helped me. I cannot stress enough on the networking part of it. You need to do that. So I've tried to answer this question in one of my videos, but I'll just keep it a bit brief here. There is a lot more goes when you want to get job, right, in the market, and not just AWS. It could be any kind of a job when you're coming out of your industry. And I am with you because I am a person who was hit by the 2008 recession. Okay, so there was no jobs in the market to begin with. Okay, we were getting all IT and IT call centers and BPO kind of jobs when we actually studied in IT as a specialization. So we I know the pain of not able to find correct jobs. But what I want to say is, have these side projects. Keep learning, keep doing some kind of side projects. You have something that we had but not at a wide scale, is the internet, right? Write blogs, maybe make YouTube channels. I don't know, whatever you want. You can write, you can speak, you can go ahead and talk at conferences, or you can just build your code and put it on GitHub, right? Create your portfolio yourself. Don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity and then start working on a particular technology, be it AWS, be it anything else. uh, you start building that technology, learn it, someone will definitely hire you. I'm not saying AWS will hire you or not. I don't want to give that kind of promise. But whatever it is, there is a lot of customers, lot of partners who are interested in hiring people who have good skill set with AWS. And I know as a fresher it is difficult, but if you have some side projects to show for that you've done this, you've done something out of the box, then people do want to hire such people as well. So there is always this chicken and egg problem, right? I don't have AWS experience, so no one's hiring me, and I don't have I have AWS. Like, how do I get experience without someone hiring me? So do your side projects, and that will be great. Is the data stored in the data centers encrypted? In a way, yes. I don't think you can find more information in the artifacts that we have with all the servers. I think we should be doing some kind of encryption at our end, but still we ask customers to do encryption when they are storing data on the cloud, right? Because if you see, with encryption, there comes an encryption key, right? If AWS is encrypting it and we are only storing it, we can always decrypt it, right? But you as a customer, if you want to store something sensitive and you don't want that to not within your team or someone else to have access to, encrypt that data with your own key, store that key securely, and that should help in the long term. I hope that answers the question. There is no, to be honest, there is no language demand to in AWS. There is I've seen a lot of people liking Python, especially the people who are into data science or machine learning. I've seen them pick up Python a lot. There is a lot of work that AWS has with a lot of different languages like Node.js, Java, or even JavaScript, TypeScript kind of languages. CDK supports TypeScript. So there is no really restriction on languages. There are a lot of different languages that we've seen. Uh, in the end, so to be honest, I have been trained on Java when I began my career, but I am not doing Java recently, right? I picked up new languages. I picked up Node.js. I was practicing Python. So you can pick up few of these depending on what you like or what you want to do, and like you're doing backend or you're doing front end or you're doing full stack, based on what kind of a developer you want to be. Select your own language and then use that language with the skills, right? Can you guide me with skill AWS requires? So I'll be honest, I applied via AWS jobs site. I can share the link I can just share that link. But I actually did that via the job site, and they do come back to you with that. So the trick there is look at locations. There are different locations. There are different kind of portfolios that even AWS is looking for, and anyone else is looking for. So try and understand where do you fit, where do you fit, and how what kind of work you want to do. Where do you want to see your career with, and then do that. Let me see how I jobs. One second. I'm just trying to find that link, but I think I'll pass that link. Either Amazon jobs. Okay. So I actually applied via the job site, to be honest. So mm, try your luck. One second. Yeah, I'll just share it. Can you please? I've shared the link. Can you just share it with the chat, live chat? How can I accurately estimate my billing on AWS? You said accurately and estimate both are opposites of each other. You can estimate your AWS billing. There is something called as AWS Account Management. There is a cost center. It has budgets where you can set even alerts. It will also show you your forecasted. It does a forecasting of your AWS billing depending on your current usage at the end of the month. So there is forecasting, and there's a lot more information you can find in the AWS Cost Management section. We have different sections. There is view cost, there is a cost explorer, there are a lot of recommendations that come in. There is budgets alerts you can set up. Oh, by 15th or anytime I cross $100, just send me an alert. You can do all these things from the cost management section. Next. Which types of jobs AWS provides? Hey, AWS has I mean, if you're working on the AWS landscape, I don't see there is any limit. Like I showed you that portfolio, right? Let me see if I can quickly scroll back. But I showed you that portfolio, right? I mean, I showed you how many. One second, I'll just go back. Okay, it's gonna go slow. So I showed you that AWS it's with big data, with analytics, with machine learning, with you could do IoT, you could do mobile app development, you could do front end, you can do back end. You could be a database person, you could just be a DevOps guy. You could be working with containers. So there's a lot of uh, technologies that you can work with when it comes to AWS, right? So you don't have to worry about what kind of job I get. You have to worry about what do you like to work with, what is your liking. There are a lot of trends I have seen, if that helps. Over the last 1 or 2 years, I've seen trends in machine learning. A lot of customers want to do machine learning. A lot of customers want to do data analytics. So there are a lot of demands for data analytics, data engineers, for people who are into BI, like do visualization or reporting of data. I've seen a lot of pickup in the containers and serverless world, so a lot of people want to work on that. uh, there are a lot of customers who are building awesome mobile applications. With the landscape changed, there's a lot of work happening in that area. And IoT is there. But we all know that IoT is coming very slowly, right? So IoT is upcoming, but I've seen some good initiatives around IoT as well. So these are some of the trends in some of the digital oriented customers. There are still a lot of enterprises who are still working on migrations and hybrid technologies and stuff like that. But other than that, these are the trends. I hope that answers one of your questions. Just 1 second. Now I'm looking at something else. 1 second. Okay, I'll just keep my last slide up. Okay. So, ma'am, for a fresher, is there any opportunity? Uh, it's a difficult question to answer, to be honest. See, I'm not going to talk about job opportunities at AWS. I can talk about job opportunities outside. There are a lot of see, how you have to think about this is you use AWS as just one of those skills in your learning. Okay, so if you are a machine learning developer into, see, machine learning is big, right? Machine learning, deep learning, AI, they are very huge markets, and there is a lot of work going on. So if you're talking about just for example, you could be someone who likes to work on predictive analysis, or you could be someone who likes to work on forecasting of certain use cases, right? So there is a lot of things that are in machine learning. So think of it from that aspect, and add some AWS flavor into it. Don't think, अच्छा मुझे AWS करना है तो उसमें मैं machine learning करूँ. That will be a very wrong attitude to look at it. Use AWS as a tool to help you move forward. Because to be honest, जो companies if they are hiring, right, they are not just hiring, अच्छा ये इंसान के पास AWS knowledge है क्या, okay, and then he has machine learning knowledge, okay, he's hired. No, they're looking for certain skills in machine learning, and AWS or anything else is just an added skill set to the portfolio. I hope that helps you understand how the job market is today. I'm sorry, I am not a TechU. I am not really sure about the TechU program. I'll communicate that via the Educate guys. I'm not sure if you are aware of it, but I'm really not sure of the TechU program. I can share some links, but nothing more. I'm sorry. That's bad on my part. Sorry. Uh, Data science. Um, uh, if you're interested in that data science and all, obviously you will have to be strong at data science and machine learning and algorithms, right? I mean, if you're interested in machine learning as a field, you should definitely uh, be strong in those fields. I mean, that is no question there. Again, I'm not answering the AWS part. There are a lot of services in AWS. Yes, that's a good question. So, uh, where can you start? You as a student, what you can do is, like I gave you a lot of links. You can just go ahead and check them on speaker on the speaker deck or slide share. But there are a lot of things. Is you can experiment, start playing. You will know what you like. I used to be a developer, a Java developer. Before that, I thought I wanted to be a tester in my life. I'll be honest, when I was learning in my college days, my professors were like, you have to become a tester because you are amazing at it. And I've done all these certifications and summer vacations and all. And I was good at it, right? I could look at a code and I could test it while the professor is writing on the board. So that is how my knowledge was. But I then got trained into development when I went into my company. And with my networking and with my knowledge, I got placed into a research and development team, and that's when I got into AWS. So no plans have worked for me, to be honest. None of my plans have worked, but what has worked for me is that whatever technology I pick up, I use my learned skill set, I apply that, and I move forward. So you will have to pick up something to begin with. You will have to pick up with development. You may figure out, oh, I don't like development so much, I may be an operations person. Then you move to operations. So when you're starting new, you start with small, start with your core understanding of the cloud platform. If you're just talking about AWS, start with core understanding of AWS, and then add the flavors that you need. You want to go into development, you want to go into machine learning. You see a lot of prospect in machine learning. You come from a strong statistic mathematical background, you can do that. In machine learning also, Now this is a different perspective, right? In machine learning, also there are a lot of companies who are looking for DevOps engineers, but from a machine learning perspective. Companies are looking for someone who can test machine learning use cases, or someone who can create data pipelines, right? How data moves from your applications to your analytics to your machine learning, someone who can have that kind of understanding. So there are different portfolios. Today the world is really huge. The kind of opportunities there are really huge. So you will have to figure out what do you like, and then build on that knowledge, because you have to do this for the rest of your life. Don't pick up something and then regret that why didn't I do that before, right? Anything else? Any other question? La, 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 la. Okay. Okay, cool. I think I have answered almost all of the questions. Um, okay, anyone else? Anjali, do you want to take it forward?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, ma'am. We
Go
are
for it.
love to hear from you. It's an amazing experience and an amazing session. So thanks a lot from the whole team. So
No worries.
now,
Awesome.
so
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. Please do reach out to me via different channels. And I know you have a lot of questions with respect to careers. I really urge you to go ahead and look for the videos on my Twitter, on my YouTube page. And, I really do want to answer a lot of these questions. But I can't just say, how do you get applied at AWS, right? Because um, it is a difficult journey, right? It is there are a lot of experienced people here that we hire, and sometimes it feels very small to be in the company where everyone around you is so smart, right? And it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort to be at a place. So don't think of a company as your end goal. Think of what you want to achieve in your life. I think that will help. And I just want to end with something I truly believe from Three Idiots, right? We have all seen Three Idiots. If you have not, please go ahead and see it. In the end, he says it's not about the money, it's about the skill. You have to learn to get skills that to add to your portfolio. Don't replace it with anything else. All the learnings, all the failures are going to help you move ahead in your career, right? And when you move ahead with your skill sets, the money will follow. So don't worry about that at all. Okay. And happy to have more sessions in future if that's needed. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening to me.
thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, so now we are going to the next step, that is our quiz. So I am going to share my screen. So guys, let me introduce what is it. So just Google it, www.kahoot.it. In this, you will see the screen in which you have to enter the pin, and then you have to go ahead, and after that you have to enter your name, in which you all have to enter your, not the nickname, your name, which is going to be located in the certificate, such that we can identify who the winner is. So please don't mention your nicknames, otherwise I will not allow you. So most of the most of you people are aware about what is it. If you are not aware about it, so let me tell you. In this there are multiple choice questions, and there are jumble order four answers, and there is a question which is display on the screen. After that question you display four symbols on the screen, and time starts from there, as well as options on my screen you can see there. So you can click on the correct option, and you can and you get point for the correct option for which the fastest person. So after every question you can see immediate feedback for your question, that is your answer is correct or not. So at last we get three top scorers, or we can say top three winners. So let's wait to join others. Guys, join fast. So guys, before this you all have to fill the feedback form. So after through that details only you get the certificate. And for the Galgotias University students, you got the attendance for this session also. So please fill the feedback form, and for the newcomers also follow the LinkedIn and Twitter also. The links are all in the comment section. And so guys, we are starting in 1 minute, so please join fast. Only 32 players are here, so please join fast. And guys, there is another certificate form, so please also fill that form. All the form links are in the comment section, so please pick it from there. So guys, shall we start? So I am going to start, just waiting for 10 seconds more. So let's start. So your first hours on AWS. So first question is Dash is the service that allows the user to run code without any server. So guys, there are options. Amazon Glacier, Amazon CloudFront, Amazon Kinesis, Amazon Lambda. Only seven answers. Make it fast, make it fast. 14, 25, 7, 8. Only 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time up. Oh, great. So let's show the score. Ritik Tyagi. Good. Sakshi Sharma and Abhishek Kumar. These are the top three scorers. So let's move to the next. Developers can easily deploy the services and web application deployed with .NET, Java, PHP, Python, and more. DynamoDB, Amazon Redshift, Amazon Elastic Beanstalk, Amazon Elastic Cache. Make it fast. I think these all are covered in the today's session. Only 20 answers yet. Only 10 seconds. Make it fast. I think there are 40 peoples. Time up. Oh, cool. 15 got correct answer. So let's see who are the top three scorers. Abhishek Kumar and Bama Kankar and Prince. These are the top three scorers. Is AWS Educate free? It's a true and false. I think it's a score booster question. All of we know about this at least. Guys, make it fast, fast, fast. It is the easiest question. And only, yeah, yeah, cool, cool, cool. 20 answers. Fast, fast. Only 10 seconds. Yeah, great. But how many are these 12 peoples? Okay, no worry. Just see. Oh, Abhishek Kumar is on streak. So, and I think these are the last three top threes. So going forward, Amazon that no code app builder to create custom apps, container app, Codefront, Honeycode, Code Guru. Only one answer yet. And the question is Amazon slash no code app builder to create custom apps. I think you are going to Google it now. That's why you are just all of them only one two people then all the 12, 13 within 2 3 seconds. Okay, no worry. 10 seconds left. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time up. Yeah, great. Most of the you peoples are going for the correct options. Prashant Singh and Abhishek Kumar is on the second, and then Bama Kankar is on third. Okay, no worry. Is it possible to use S3 with EC2 instances? True or false? Ma'am discussed this question in the today's session. Fast, 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 guys. Only three answers. So time up. Yeah, great. 31. Going for the correct answer. Prashant Singh is on streak. Abhishek Kumar is on second position and Bama Kantkar is on third position. So going to the next. Dash is the CEO of AWS. It's also the very easy question. Ken Kishner, Jeff Bezos, Teresa Carlson, and Andy Jassy. I think most of the people know this question, know the answer of this question. The question is that who is the CEO of AWS? And options are in front of you. Only 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8, 7, 6. So guys, time up. Yeah, 22 mark right. And Prashant Singh is again on the top first position. I think these are the only three persons who are the from the last three questions on the top. So it's also the score booster. Name of guest speaker of today's event: Archit, and then Abhimanyu, Rohini Gaonkar, Suman Devnath. So who is the today's speaker? Only three answers and 20 seconds are just go. Make it fast, make it fast. The more quick you press for the response, the more you score. Only 10 seconds. So, guys, time up. Who are these three peoples? I think they are out of the session. They're just the random guy who will not attend the event and just here for the taking the quiz. Prashant Singh is on the top, and Bama Kankar is on the second, and Abhishek Kumar is on the third. So let's go to the next question. AWS Educate provide how much credit for newcomers? Answer is I'm not going to tell you. Sorry. So please choose it. Only one answer yet. AWS Educate provide dash credits for newcomers. This thing also may be shared in the comment section. I remember. These are too much easy questions, na? Oh, good. Yeah, $100 will be credited in your account for AWS Educate account. So let's go see the top five. Yeah, Prashant Singh is on streak, and again Bamakant Kumar is on second, and Abhishek Kumar is on third, and Ajay Pratap is on fourth. I think he is coming just now. Dash is the exabyte scale data transfer service used to move extremely large amount of data to AWS. AWS, Redshift, Snowmobile, CloudFront, or Snowball. So guys, reply. Do fast, do fast. Only 5 seconds. Yeah, nine correct. I think it's a good question. So let's move to the next and the last one, I think. Oh, before that, we have to just see the score. Yeah, Ajay Pratap is on second position, and Abhishek Kumar is on fourth position, and Bama Kant is on third position. Prashant Singh is as remains same on the first position. So the next, which AWS service allow to rent virtual machines? Okay. Amazon Lightsail, Amazon EC2, Amazon S3, AWS Elastic Benstack. Which AWS service allow to rent virtual machines? Make it fast, guys. Two, one, time up. So 21 out of 37, I guess, mark the correct option. So it's time to see the results. So the top third person is Bamakant Kumar, and the second one is Ajay Pratap, and the first one is Prashant Singh, who scored 90 19,954 points and marked 10 out of 10 questions. So good. Congratulations to both to all three. So we are going to this. So guys, it's all about today's session. We are going to wrap up. Please fill the feedback form and the certificate form as mentioned in the comment box. So, and the awards will be given to the top three scorers to their mail IDs. So, let's stop the session here.